Etsy has been having some issues recently, and it's time that we talk about it. Now, I've been pretty outspoken about my experience and my opinion that Etsy is a great place, if not the best place to start a handmade business, but I can't ignore their flaws either. Today, I am joining the initiative to keep Etsy human and using my platform to raise awareness for those who have been affected by Etsy's recent policy changes or lack of enforcement of, and to get Etsy's attention on these issues. As a full-time Etsy seller and as an Etsy YouTuber who spends a lot of my free time helping other people be successful on Etsy also, this conversation puts me and my audience in a tricky situation. And you may be surprised to see myself and other Etsy YouTubers actually talking about this. So let's just get this out of the way and make sure that we're all on the same page for the remainder of our time together today. I have personally seen a small but mighty uproar among Etsy sellers, new and old, saying they're leaving the platform because of these issues I'm about to discuss, whether these issues have affected them personally or not, as well as people who were thinking about starting an Etsy shop and now they say they're not even going to bother. And funny enough, before I even found out about this initiative, I recorded an entire video talking about this exact thing of people making rash decisions based on what other people say or what other YouTubers put in their clickbait thumbnails. So I might release that, I might not. Not that I don't agree with what I said, it's just kind of overlaps with this. The absolute last thing that I want to do is end up indirectly hurting your business or your family's income because of something that I say in this video or any other videos for that matter. Yeah, of course, your decisions are ultimately on you, but thousands of people come to my channel for advice about Etsy and to other channels as well because they value our opinions and what we have to say because we have experience. And I don't take that lightly. So honestly, I was pretty hesitant to even talk about this at all, as I'm sure many of my colleagues are as well, including the person who started this in the first place. This is absolutely not because I want to make sure that you stay on Etsy and keep watching my Etsy videos, helping me get those YouTube AdSense dollars, pennies, or that you'll pay me to review your shop. Other YouTubers have courses, memberships, and stuff like that. I'm small potatoes over here. My channel is pretty small and I basically only make enough to pay our water bill every month, but what I do have and what I stand to lose is your trust and my own conscience, I guess. The reason I was personally hesitant about it is because I just don't want to cause unnecessary panic and stress by bringing awareness to a scary situation that is just unlikely to happen to the vast majority of people watching. Starting your own business is freaking hard already. It's stressful. Many of my subscribers and review clients are not doing this just as a hobby or as a side thing. They need that income to support their families, but their shop just isn't there yet. And many others are supporting their families off of their Etsy shops. And every single time something happens with Etsy, they're in the news, or some policy changes or whatever the case is, people jump on it. So it's incredibly frustrating when other Etsy sellers or content creators making their clickbait or regular Joes in the comment section who never even attempted to open an Etsy shop, or maybe they did and didn't put in the effort necessary to make it work, are all blaming everybody but themselves and feeding into this mass hysteria trying to get people to quit when they don't know the situation and they don't realize or care about the harm they're causing. I just want to be clear that the issues I'm going to talk about are very serious to those they affect. I do not want to downplay or minimize that at all. But please keep in mind that it is not as widespread as it may seem, and I actually have numbers to back that up. But despite it being not so widespread right now, that doesn't mean that everybody else is safe either. The goal with the Keep Etsy Human initiative is to hold Etsy accountable and make sure that at a bare minimum it doesn't get worse, but ultimately we want them to do better. So we're respectfully asking for change in a few areas. Let's discuss what those recent issues are, specifically how they're just not being executed as planned, what's being done about it, a few of my personal suggestions if anybody from Etsy is listening. They don't know who I am, and what we as Etsy sellers need to know to keep ourselves and our businesses safe. So how do we get here in the first place? What led to these changes? Etsy's growth as a company has been astronomical since 2020. According to their most recent quarterly report, which was for Q2 of 2023, they have exceeded the all-time high for the number of active buyers on the site, which is now sitting at over 96 million. Side note, is great for us. As of the end of 2022, as reported in their year-end report, they have implemented several good changes for sellers specifically that were good ideas, at least. That's including the actually functional Etsy seller app, because the old one didn't work very well, the purchase protection program, access to 24/7 live chat support for all sellers, and finally cracking down on those non-handmade products. Now, you're probably thinking a lot of things, just hold your horses, I'll get there. So yeah, those things are great ideas and should be helping sellers in theory. And they're making use of that increased fee, which did raise from 5% to 6.5% in 2022 as well. It just seems like all of these changes were good performance indicators and good PR and just good ideas, but they've just missed the mark as far as what sellers have been actually asking for. And that's mainly due to the execution or the maintenance of these things. The biggest issue that we've seen recently that is directly impacting individual sellers is the payment reserve. Just want to reiterate, it's not happening to everyone, and I have the numbers in just a second. After reading through Etsy's explanation of what the payment reserve is and why and how it can happen, it completely makes sense to me on the surface. Most online selling platforms have something like this when you first open a shop, just to make sure that you're not trying to sell a bunch of stuff and take the money and run and never send the products, because that makes your platform look bad if you allow that to happen, right? The article from Etsy even says that the funds should be released immediately when you add a tracking number to the order. But based on the reports of thousands of Etsy sellers who have actually experienced this, it's simply not the case. It just doesn't work that way. Etsy also says that they cannot give out specific reasoning as to why the reserve was placed. And that's basically to prevent people from gaming the system, which again makes sense to me, and I agree with it on the surface, because they don't want the people who are actually scammers to have this information, so it's not really safe to give it to everybody either, which is frustrating to people who are honest and not trying to scam, because then you don't know what you did wrong and can't fix it. And this is definitely an automated system. It's not a person doing these decisions. This is probably an unpopular opinion, but I think that a payment reserve system or something similar is a great way to prevent fraud and scammers, of which I'm sure there are many. But if you are indeed not a scammer, there is basically no appeals process. If you've added the tracking, confirmed that the customer has received their order, waited the 2 weeks that it says, and still nothing, sorry. They did do something about this recently though. Some UK-based sellers organized a boycott and got some media coverage for this, and Etsy actually changed the percentage of funds that are held, which they don't specify what the percentage actually is. It's up to 75%, but most commonly is 30%, supposedly. But this part of it I do not agree with. Any and all fees or holds on funds should be transparent and specific as far as the amount and the duration, which transparency of fees is another thing that Etsy has already been in hot water over. Thankfully, after that, they did update the payment account page, so that way it's a bit more transparent as far as where your fees are going, but it could still use some work. According to this article from The Guardian at the beginning of August of 2023, less than 2% of shops, or around 140,000 sellers, currently had a payment reserve, but for 70% of those, the funds being held were less than $50. So just doing some quick math here, of the estimated 140 sellers affected by this, 42,000 have funds held of over $50. That could be 51 or it could be thousands, but 42,000 is less than 0.5% of the total number of sellers on Etsy currently. Less than 0.5%. I can't emphasize enough that I do feel for the people who are being affected by this, and absolutely this needs to change and not happen to people who are not trying to scam. I just wanted to put that into perspective of exactly how many shops this is affecting, because it can seem like way more than that when all you hear are people who are having issues, because people aren't screaming from the rooftops and making videos and posting comments on threads when everything is going well. But another thing that the Guardian article shows us is that Etsy is listening. Enough UK-based sellers raised a stink and they did something. Not enough, but something. The next issue is the false takedowns. As part of the plan to cut down on the amount of drop shippers or shops with non-handmade items or otherwise prohibited listings on Etsy, they have started using AI to comb through the listings. I'm not sure if this is just text-based or if it looks at images as well. I don't even know how many hundreds of millions probably of listings there are on Etsy. Even if they were able to hire thousands more people, those people would never be able to get through every single listing that exists. So I think that the AI was a smart decision there. But again, there is basically no appeals process. AI can't really be programmed to identify every single item correctly 100% of the time, because you have to feed it every possible scenario and it has to account for human errors in all of those scenarios. So while the AI certainly is faster and cheaper and theoretically learns and improves itself over time, they need to have humans on the other end of this to help if something is taken down by mistake. And when sellers request help for something like this, most of the time the answer is just, our decision is final, don't contact us anymore, even if you submit proof that the action was taken in error. And that happens with the system that removes prohibited items and with false copyright claims. And that's just talking about listings. This is happening for entire shops too. Sometimes brand new shops will get suspended for no particular reason why. Sometimes they come back, sometimes they don't. Sure, you can rightfully be suspended or terminated for breaking the terms of service, and that may have been the case and you just didn't realize it. Or it could be like with the listings and it's done in error. Then if the system decides that you suddenly have too many orders, it can put your shop on vacation mode or remove your listings from search. Now, I do recommend that you do this if you know that you have too many orders and are not going to be able to fulfill your obligation to ship them on time, but only you know how many orders that is. And for most of us, that's going to vary from day to day or which particular item is selling the most. In my opinion, this kind of thing should only be done by Etsy if they receive complaints or if you have actually fallen behind and can't ship on time, which they will ding you for anyways because it is your responsibility to ship orders on time. They should not do it just because the system thinks you have too many orders with no proof of how many you can actually do. And again, there is no clear answer or estimate on how to figure out how many is too many. You would think logically it's something like twice as many as you've ever had before. Like if the most that you've ever had at one time was 10 orders and you suddenly got 20 in one day, then they would step in. We don't know. I've seen it happen for like hundreds of orders for a well-established shop that is equipped to handle hundreds of orders. But then I've seen people report it as low as 4. And maybe this is another fraud prevention thing. Like what if somebody opens an Etsy shop or tries to use somebody else's shop to wash their money? Which I'm not even going to speculate on how they would accomplish that because I don't want to knock on my door. But such an activity could result in an unusually large amount of orders. Or if they're trying one of those schemes like people do on Amazon where they will submit a bunch of legitimate orders to try and boost their reviews or something. Or actually, I didn't even put this in my notes for this, but I just thought it is a problem on Etsy that other businesses, like people selling on Amazon and Facebook, use Etsy sellers to drop ship for their own business. And I have actually seen a video of somebody showing you how to do this. It was a long time ago and I don't really want to lay out how to do it. But basically people are taking advantage of Etsy sellers and selling handmade items for a higher price somewhere else. But these kind of policies are not necessarily a bad thing because they not only want to make sure that you are fulfilling your obligation to your customers, which are also Etsy's customers, because it reflects badly on their business if they allow sellers to get away with shipping things late. But also they have a legal and moral obligation to prevent fraud, and they have every right to enforce their terms of service, which I will get to later on. The problem here that we are trying to bring awareness to is not the policy itself, it's that they are just not communicating adequately with sellers when these things happen by mistake. For the sake of time, I'm not going to go through every single issue that could possibly happen, but most of them could be solved with better seller support. Remember earlier when I said that they were putting those fees to use by implementing 24/7 seller support? See right here, I have a screenshot of this from the 2022 annual report. Personally, I've only had to use this once before it was even rolled out to everybody. My issue was resolved in less than 5 minutes total. It was about an item getting lost in the mail. I sent them proof from USPS that said that the package in particular was stolen, and they reimbursed me so that I could resend the item to the customer. Pretty straightforward issue that seems like they are equipped to handle. I do recommend if you need to do something like this, give them screenshots and proof, it's gonna help. But for the more complex things or the scenarios like we've discussed before, this chat can't help with that, and it also can't escalate it to somebody who can. Or maybe you get directed to email and then you just get a copy and paste response that says, sorry, we can't help with this. don't contact us about it again, but if you need anything else, we're here. So what's the point of having this expanded access to the 24/7 chat support if there seems to be no system in place to actually make sure that people's issues are being resolved? I completely understand that change takes time, right? Especially for thousands of new employees. From my perspective, as somebody who has been in a supervisor role at a call center that also did chat support, it seems to me like there is not really an escalation system in place. It's not a matter of the representatives are deciding not to deal with things. It seems like they can't. From what I have seen, this is not like an issue with the staff not handling things correctly at all. So please do not come to them with your complaints about this, because they can't do anything either. That's like yelling at a fast food employee because the prices increased. They can't do anything. The evidence for my theory that they just don't have a system in place for this is that no matter how many times somebody emails or chats about a specific issue, they just don't get a response at all. It's not like they open another chat and somebody else knows what they're doing and can handle it. It's just the system isn't quite right. I don't know how else to say that. The representatives can only do what their system was designed to do. So if they don't have a button to escalate your issue or to transfer it to another department or something like that, they can't. From what I have gathered from people talking about having issues like this, it does not seem that anybody at the base level that you could get a hold of at all at the email or the chat support can reinstate a closed account or reactivate suspended listings. The people that I have seen get their accounts reinstated that were legitimately suspended in error and not just they broke the rules and didn't know it, they had to make noise on social media to get the attention of somebody higher up. So maybe I'm wrong, maybe they can, but then why aren't they? So what do I think Etsy should do to fix these things? I do know that Etsy is listening to us. Number one, because of that article from The Guardian that I mentioned earlier. And number two, I just received last week an email from the Etsy research team with a survey that was basically asking questions very similar to the things that we're talking about in this video, with the payment reserve and not getting adequate resolutions and taking down other like non-handmade items and how all of those things are impacting my shop. So I filled that out right quick. And don't worry, even though I said that these things aren't like directly affecting me, I made sure to let them know that those things going on made me uncertain and worried that they would happen to me. And I do think that they might have had a question specifically about like if I was worried about it. So obviously my top suggestion that is going to bring about the most change and have a ripple effect on all of these other things is going to be better seller support. Yeah, we do have that 24/7 chat, but it's useless if the agents don't have power to fix anything or they can't send it on to somebody who can. This one is something that I haven't heard suggested yet, and I'm kind of surprised. Once the kinks and the growing pains are out of this current support system, it is my humble suggestion that they may consider having a dedicated department or a team of liaisons for the top sellers. If this already exists, please let me know, because I'm apparently not there yet. I do know that it exists on YouTube for the top creators. They have a contact, like a person with a name and a phone number at YouTube to contact with problems or just questions in general. The highest selling shops are going to have different and more frequent or more urgent support issues than the average smaller shop, because if something goes wrong, that is going to affect a very large number of orders, because some of these shops get hundreds if not thousands of orders per day on a daily basis. And the risk to Etsy's bottom line is higher if some of these people ever decide to leave. It would also be a great incentive for mid-sized shops like mine or even smaller to work hard and want to progress and grow on the platform, because we know that if we ever have questions or we have an issue that needs to be resolved, we have the name of a person to contact. And those liaisons would be the first line to communicate with the upper echelons if we have feedback or everybody like has kind of the same suggestion, or maybe people are asking the same questions. Those people would be more in tune with what's going on. I think it's a genius idea, and Etsy, you're welcome for me giving that to you for free. Your free trial has ended. If you'd like to hire me to consult on future projects, my email is abby@type9studio.com. Next, again, talking about the payment reserve. I understand why this exists, but please, we need a little more transparency. I am all for preventing fraud and scams. That was my absolute favorite thing to do when I worked at that call center because it was for a bank and I got to shut down quite a few scammers in my days there, but it's undeniably impacting honest sellers too. I think the practical solution on the back end could be if somebody submits a claim that their shop was terminated by mistake, then maybe allow them access to their shop, but like keep it on vacation mode or something so they can't make any sales, and then give them a certain amount of time to fix whatever the issue is. I mean, with the promise that if it happens again, it's going to be permanent. And if an item is taken down by mistake, allow us to submit proof that the system was wrong and then reactivate the listing. My last suggestion for now would be to make it easier for sellers to do local pickups. And a lot of us have stopped offering local pickup because these new changes to policy require you to add tracking and punish you if you don't, which is an automatic, like it's just setting us up for failure if we want to do local pickup, which really stinks for people who do large items like furniture. I think the problem with the local pickup thing came when people were just marking an item as local pickup if they were going to take longer to ship it and then just add the tracking number later. So my solution for this would be that both the buyer and the seller have to submit that they are doing a local pickup. So there would be an option that shows up on the listing page that the item is available for pickup, and then at checkout the customer would select that as an option versus shipping. That way it could kind of be like where digital downloads don't require a tracking number or even have a place to put one. And if somebody orders and forgets to click the pickup or maybe realizes later that they live close to the person, then they may have to like cancel and refund and then reorder just so it goes through. But I don't know, they don't pay me for this, so I don't know how to do that on the back end. And unfortunately, I have heard of some instances where sellers have been put on the payment reserve or maybe kicked out of Star Seller because they did not put a tracking number on their digital downloads. But I thought the local pickup used to be a feature anyways, so I don't know where it went. So what happens now? Going back to my explanation that I made at the beginning and mostly speaking to sellers and prospective sellers right now, I want to make sure that you know and fully appreciate that person to person, you have to protect yourself and your business, and you have to be aware of what is happening in your industry and with the platforms and services that you use. Point blank period, but let's talk about why. I'm about to be very direct and very blunt. I am not trying to scare you. I hope that's clear from the rest of the things that I've said in this video, but I care about you and your business, and you need to hear this. Etsy is not your friend. They are also not your employer. They are a business first and foremost. You are paying them for a service they provide. They have every right to enforce their terms of service, and if they decide to terminate or suspend your account, you do not have a legal right to continue using their service, which means they don't have to reinstate accounts or reactivate listings. They do sometimes, but it's not illegal if they don't. It sucks and sometimes is unfair, but that's a risk that you take when using any service. It is not a thing that is exclusive to Etsy. If you read any terms of service ever, they're all probably gonna say a similar thing. I suggest as highly as I can without demanding that you actually read the terms of service and the seller policies on Etsy, which actually are written in plain English and not so much legalese like other contracts that you may come across, because it's not an unusual occurrence for me to come across someone who has had a payment reserve or had their shop just terminated, and they'll make a fuss about it and say that it was unfair or they don't know why it happened. And then when I go and actually take a look, they have clearly violated some rule. Whether that's they were trying to sell stuff that's not classified as handmade, vintage, or a craft supply, stuff that is copyright protected, or even stuff that's just straight up illegal, or they finally admit that they've broken another one of the terms of service in some other way. It does not matter if you were aware of the rules or not. So if you want to prevent this, a good place to start would be to be aware of the rules. This is your responsibility no matter where you conduct your business. Whether that's on Etsy or some other online marketplace, or you're selling stuff at a local craft fair, an antique mall, a flea market, you have to follow the rules. I hope it's clear that was not me trying to defend Etsy or minimize their actions and how they have affected people's businesses, but I also think it's unfair and unreasonable to paint Etsy in a bad light for enforcing their terms of service and just assuming that all of these account suspensions or terminations or listings being taken down were all errors, because people like to hate on Etsy, like a lot. The whole point of this Keep Etsy Human initiative is to band together and hold Etsy accountable. They have said to us over and over how they're making improvements for us as sellers, and they have been, you know, flaunting these things for the shareholders, and they're just not being implemented. With so many creative and like-minded, empathetic, I would go so far as to say, people on one particular platform, we're not going to just stand by and let Etsy, who is supposed to be a platform created specifically for us, just turn completely corporate and cold and run us over. We like selling on Etsy. We don't want to see it fail. We don't want to see people giving up on their dreams because it's no longer a viable place for them to sell. So we are very, very passionate about keeping the platform as mutually beneficial as possible for us, for Etsy, and for our customers. Like I said earlier, they just set the record for the highest number of active buyers ever. The public is regaining their trust in Etsy after it kind of became known about the increase of non-handmade stuff on there. They're marketing a lot on traditional media. The holidays are coming up. Something I hadn't heard about until I started reading their quarterly reports. They just had a pretty successful campaign to increase the amount of male identifying buyers on the site, and they've managed to reactivate tens of millions of buyers who hadn't made a purchase at all in the last 12 months. Now is not the freaking time to be fear-mongering and spreading nonsense and trying to divide the community. It is the freaking time to step it up. We have Etsy's attention. They are doing things to help us. They know what we want, and they know that buyers are happy when we're happy. The hashtag Keep Etsy Human initiative was started by Starla Moore. I will link to her original video in the description box. I'm sure most of my subscribers follow her also, but if you don't, then maybe you should. We would love to hear your story and how these things have been affecting your shop specifically. If your shop has not been affected, then help us bring awareness to those who have. My comment section is open, but also please share on social media with the hashtag Keep Etsy Human on Instagram, Threads, TikTok, the app formerly known as Twitter, and as Starla suggested, LinkedIn. Lots of the big cheeses over at Etsy use LinkedIn, so that might be a good place to do it. Just please be respectful and polite when you are sharing your stories. This isn't gonna work if we start getting nasty and calling names and cussing and stuff. Just don't. It doesn't even have to be some 5-paragraph essay. You can just tag one of your regular posts with hashtag Keep Etsy Human, or make a cute graphic with your brand's colors on Canva and post it wherever you normally post, or comment on Etsy's social media posts with the hashtag. Kill them with kindness. And remember that we just want Etsy to do better so that our shops can grow with them.